saved yourself from having to add more to solve problems, really looking at, okay, how do I plan out my infrastructure? What are the different pieces that I need going forward? What do I need in the next 6 months? What do I need in the next year? So getting a quick view of, okay, who are my top talkers on this ESX environment? Is there contention? Are there people who are using more than they're entitled to? If they use more than they're entitled to, and I give them more resource as standard so that they're not overutilizing what they're entitled to, am I going to outstrip the capacity of my server? Am I going to outstrip the capacity of my I/O? So getting back to an understanding, okay, these are the pieces, how they're put together, here's my top talkers, and understanding within my cluster, okay, maybe I start to use resource pools to track them. Again, getting back to if you can measure it, if you can monitor it, you can measure it, and once you can measure it, then you can go back and provide a service level on top of that. That measurement becomes your baseline. Once that baseline is in place, you understand, okay, this is my resource groups, even if you start to use it as folders. I folder some of my web servers. I folder some of my database servers. Or maybe it's a certain application like SAP. And that way you can understand what part of my cluster is utilized by a certain set of resources. Who are my top resource utilizers? Are they the ones that are making my company money? Do I need to set limits? How much do I need to set within those resource pools so that I understand, okay, I don't want one resource pool outstripping the others. So one set of servers really is not as high a priority. How do I go back and prioritize that? By understanding and measuring that over time and having analytics to help you understand from a CPU, memory, and I/O perspective what's being utilized. Nice sharing, understanding, how you get to that quote-unquote cloud. How do you get to a service level, and defining a service level within that is really what resource pools are all about. But then really, again, measuring it accurately and forecasting it so you understand, okay, I've seen this, now I understand which applications, which guests, and which resource pools are utilizing the most. How do I define what capital expenditures I need for the next 6 months, the next year? How do I understand if I'm going to blow my budget out and justify that based on the ROI, based on, okay, yes, I'm going to have to spend a little more on servers this year to get higher consolidation ratios, but what it will allow me to do is save in spending servers next year. Or by going to more CPU, maybe I'm CPU bound, that will actually allow me to get higher densities and save us on data center space. Maybe that becomes part of your DR strategy as being able to eliminate how many systems you have to actually DR, how many physical systems, and understanding that, that added hardware or added services, that Nexus can actually help you understand from a cost-benefit perspective, what are those DR services, how do you need them, how can you most cost-effectively do that. So looking at, some of the cases, we have Autotrader.com, who really utilized us to understand and utilizes us in a yearly fashion to understand, okay, how many more ESX servers do I need to buy? How many more within this cluster? As a service provider to my organization, as being a very technology-savvy, software-heavy organization, how do I provide them service levels and understand how I keep ahead from a capacity, but doing it in more of a JIT or just-in-time infrastructure perspective where I'm providing that ongoing, but then also understanding that here's the different pieces that we put together. Is it CPU, memory, or I/O? How do I get higher consolidation ratios, and what is my most expensive piece, and how do I limit that? So looking at what the performance index is, both within the VMs and within the ESX servers, and then marrying that to forecasting of the volumetric capacity. So understanding I'm going to, have these VMs or these physicals that are chewing up my infrastructure. If I go through and buy more assets, this is where I want to allocate it to. This is why I want to allocate it to there. And being able to understand what's going on and the different pieces that are done. That led us to looking at what customers are really doing and managing service levels and how do they do that ongoing. Really what we found is that they're predicting and managing the infrastructure services by looking at what's abnormal. So again, by having analytics that under the hood do those baselining activities for you. You don't have to be an Excel whiz. You don't have to write macros. Understanding what is normal. So if I see a high infrastructure response time, So what? Is it within my 95th percentile? Is it outside of it? If it's outside of it, how far outside is it? And then warn me. Have the system put its hand up in the air and go, hey, come look at application XYZ. It's actually outside of its norm for I/O. Then looking at and saying, okay, here's the different pieces, here's the different times that are being led, bottlenecks, and being able to detect that bottleneck ongoing. Being able to really manage the performance and capacity by knowing, hey, having spikes of, my performance index over 100 at, the middle of the night during backups is fine. But if I miss a backup, I need to understand that if I go and redo it during the day, I'm going to have that spike, and everybody who's on there for those applications is going to suffer. So understanding and managing service levels, understanding that service levels are not created equal day and night, depending on the application utilization profile, and being able to profile not only those applications and their workloads on those VMs, but profiling that impact on the rest of the ESX farm and understanding within the ESX servers who is being impacted. So one of the companies that we look at is FFVA. They were really challenged by complexity and data growth, by offering, just-in-time infrastructure. They really wanted to be able to understand, some intermittent issues that would slow things down in the middle of the day, and really get out of that a tool set that would help them identify them and bottlenecks before they became issues. They run very, very lean from an IT perspective, managing a whole bunch of infrastructure. And they're virtual first, about 90+% virtualized, looking at how they've really simplified their data center management by utilizing balance point to understand across servers, storage, and CPU what's going on, how much is being utilized, who's the top talker. If I add this new application to service my end users, part of our co-op, how is that going to impact the rest of my farm? Look at it in test dev, be able to measure that, manage it, and deploy it in the right piece of the infrastructure that it's going to fit in. Or understanding, hey, it's time to actually upgrade our systems. We're going to have to go and add to this. Or maybe it's the creation of a new cluster altogether where we're going to migrate over time to, say, vSphere 4 from our vSphere, or from our 3.5 implementation. How do we do that? How do we track the capacity? Well, they utilized balance point to understand what was being utilized, then being able to add the performance and physical servers as needed, as was required to support those applications, really getting to that just-in-time infrastructure. So really what our customers are saying to us is there's a proven value. Typical ROI is 2 to 4 months. Again, our partner at Nexus can really help you understand what the different pieces are, and understanding how you deliver on that virtualization ROI. How do you understand if you're getting your current ROI? How much more could you deliver? Definitely something that you should contact Nexus about and understand, okay, here's the different pieces of those services that they showed up front that can really help there. Reach out to Keith, reach out to the rest of the folks over there, and understand, how do I lower my operating expenses? How do I get more time back in my day? By reducing troubleshooting by over 80%. How do I look like one of those other Corey customers that was able to double their densities from a VM perspective without adding any more servers? How do I understand that that makes my life easier from a DR perspective? Not only that, how do I go and reduce my storage costs by using the right types of storage? Maybe somebody's complaining and we're anticipating using solid-state disk. Do we really need it or not? Can I get away with SATA? If I move some things down to SATA, could I get higher densities on my fiber channel and better response times? Being able to go back and reduce those costs without spending a dime to get more utilization out of your storage and out of your servers. With that, I also recommend that you go up to Nexus's website that they have co-branded with a Corey. It's a corey.com/nexus, where you can download a white paper on this. Also, there you can find an overview and a demonstration where we walk you actually through the product in a pretty complete and extensive way of all the features, where you get to actually then test drive it on your own, right there and there, off of the corey.com/nexus. And with that, I thank you, and I'll turn it back over to